What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hawks Film Room podcast, hosted by yours truly, David Lee, aka DLee43. Please like, share, subscribe, share the podcast wherever you may see fit. It's been some time since we had a last had a conversation. Unfortunately, got a little bit busy, but I've tried to watch as many Hawks games as possible. But I'll never come on here and not have an informed opinion about the games. So didn't feel quite like I had a pulse on the games up until April 10th when we played Brooklyn, and then the following game against Philly. 2 wins for the Hawks coming off a close loss to Orlando, which I will have to watch at some point because I want to be able to make sure I can give y'all a great breakdown for our impending matchup, because the Hawks are locked into that 8 seed versus 7 seed first playing game. They will be in Orlando. We're going to see Orlando again on Sunday. We'll have one of the Magic fans I've spoken to in the past. He'll come on for that, and we'll talk through the game, from that particular game. I don't expect the Hawks to play everyone. Right now, they have, I think, like the entire starting five, and then some of the more key bench pieces they've been listed as questionable. So we will probably see them sit those guys. But I think what I really want to talk about, at least for over the last couple of games, is Mouhamed Gueye and Zachary Risacher. In last night's game against Philly, Mouhamed Gueye, man, he had his career high for rebounds, 18 rebounds, 10 points, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. He was a plus 21, which led the team in his 33 minutes. Now, there is some competition caveat right there. Philly did not play anyone who will probably be in their rotation next year. Again, they are tanking. Their injury report is longer than the amount of players that they played. So just to give you that sort of context, Adem Bona is a pretty tough matchup for someone like Mouhamed Gueye, even Onyeka Okongwu, because he's super strong and very explosive. But yeah, so Mouhamed Gueye had a big night. Trae Young went for 36 and 11. Caris also went for 31. Now, Trae has 164 career 30-plus point games, right? Just 12 of those, he's had a teammate also go for 30-plus. And last night, it was Caris LeVert. His most career games with a teammate also going for 30 actually came with John Collins. And then after that, it's DeJounte Murray. And then after that, it's Bogdan Bogdanovic. And he's done it this year with Onyeka Okongwu and Caris LeVert. So my biggest takeaway from that actually is that Trae has the lowest percentage of 30-plus point games where a teammate also goes for 30-plus. And that's relevant because, there's always been this conversation about like the scoring help or the burden that Trae carries. And I do think there's an element of like, okay, well, someone like Kevin Durant has a very high percentage of his 30-plus point games coming with someone else's. Maybe it's because he's within the offense or he's not the primary ball handler, right? There's some semantics around it. But the reality is the only other people who are close is Donovan Mitchell and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And both of those guys, up until Donovan Mitchell became a Cav, didn't have the infrastructure around them in terms of like to lessen their scoring level. We'll probably see either Jalen Williams step into that role for the Thunder, or they're going to have to add somebody else to alleviate that for SGA, because it's just not sustainable in a playoff setting, right? And so I think, long term for the Hawks, that's something to keep in mind. Like, you do need to find someone to alleviate that scoring load for Trae. But right now, I think he's doing a really great job raising the floor of this team. Because, as much as I can come on here and say, okay, I really want Mouhamed Gueye to play, he's still incredibly raw offensively. And there's a reason why he has such a tight leash on some nights, is because we literally cannot score with him on the floor against teams that know how to exploit that. But the defensive impact is undeniable. And just having any semblance of length out there is such a huge benefit for this Hawks team. In fact, in that game against Philly, we actually saw Don Barlow for, I want to say, just 2 minutes. And we saw Mouhamed Gueye at the 5, which is something that a lot of Hawks fans, including myself, have been interested to see at some point. So with Onyeka off the floor and with Mouhamed Gueye as the only big, right? So we'll also have Don Barlow off the floor. He played 17 minutes at center. So that's a great, that's a great burn from him. The Hawks were plus 12. They had a plus 34 net rating. Overall, the defense wasn't great in those minutes, but in the units that he played the most minutes, when he had, interestingly, and again, this is a small sample size, but we had guys like T-Man on the floor with him or Caris LeVert. Like, the defensive rating wasn't as bad. But the biggest takeaway is how good they were on the glass, okay? They snagged 37.5% of their misses with Mouhamed Gueye at center, right? Without Onyeka on the floor. And so that's really big, of course, for a Hawks team that doesn't have a lot of size. He was a beast on the glass. I think he had 8 offensive rebounds in just the second half. If you look at his minutes that he played with Onyeka on the floor, in general. You had the Hawks went, or just the minutes that, yeah, if you look at the minutes with both him and Onyeka on the floor, 16 minutes, Hawks were +9. Defense was much better in those minutes, although the offense, again, sometimes with Onyeka and Gueye on the floor, and Onyeka didn't have a particularly good game offensively. They rebounded the ball at 53.7% total, but 38% offensive rebounding percentage. So this is relevant because, again, the Hawks are going to have to play a lot of size against Orlando, and they're going to have to go to these lineups if they want any chance to beat one of the most physical teams in the NBA. Like, as much as Dyson could be, and I saw some of the clips from the game earlier in April, as much as he can be disruptive, both on and off the ball, you got to be able to finish those possessions. And the Hawks won't be able to reliably switch Onyeka onto ball handlers if they try to bring Trae into action, like whatever it may be. Having that backline rebounding is going to be huge, which means that Mouhamed Gueye has to be at least a little bit respectable offensively. The good thing about playing a team like Orlando, and this is why I really hope Quinn leans into playing. I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is why I hope I see him lean into playing him more. When a team can't punish you by being a great offense because you might struggle a little bit to score, I think that's where the trade-off of playing Mouhamed Gueye a lot of minutes really makes a lot of sense. And ideally, if they're going to be playing, again, a team like Orlando, they could do what they did against Philly, which is, just run Mouhamed Gueye out there who can really help shore up their defense, put some size on the floor, finish possessions, which is going to be so important as they try and look, make at least some sort of an intriguing playoff run. Like, I don't have any real expectations, but again, getting ahead of myself a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at just some on-ball Risacher stuff. Now, this isn't from any particular game. It's from about the last 5 or so games. I've been really impressed with him. I really feel like he's been super, super confident and very poised in these moments where he's attacking closeouts. So this came against Brooklyn, where he had a career high 38 points. I think he had like an 82 shooting percentage. Again, he's the only rookie in his class of 35 plus point games. But I want to point out this possession here. You're going to notice that he's getting to be very decisive off the catch, right? So here he's catching the ball in the corner. The way that Trendon Watford closes out, he has a leading foot. Basketball coaches on every level, they'll tell you to attack the leading foot because, of course, then the defender has to open up, and it's much harder to move laterally when you have one foot in front of the other. And so Risacher, he sees this. It's a quick rip through, attacking that top foot. He's going to blow past Watford, and then he realizes the help is coming off of Mouhamed Gueye. And this is where you see the craft and the poise at such a young age, right? So first, a long step to draw in the defender. Then you're going to see number 4 in Brooklyn go up because Risacher has looked like he's about to go up for a floater or something like that. Then he brings it back down, absorbs the contact, right? There's the bump. Ref blows the whistle, and he stays poised, knocks down the shot through the contact. Like, that's really, really special stuff from him. And I think this is, again, like, if he can do this consistently and shoot the ball that he has at the rate that he has over the last 60 games, he's at 37% on about 5 or 6 3-point attempts per game, right? If you can be that level of shooter and also be that dynamic attacking closeouts, then you're going to be a really huge offensive weapon. So here you get to see Risacher, similar situation, right? Here's Nicholas Claxton closing out. His feet are a little bit narrow, right? So he can't react as quickly to what Risacher is doing. So first, here comes one crossover to get him moving one way. He opens up, and then boom, they see that top foot. His left foot is in front of the rest of his body. Attack that. He can't open up quick enough. And then here you just see the unorthodox. Like, this is, at this point, most players in the NBA are not anticipating a shot. But this is a scoop with the right hand over the contest. So now this shot got me out of my chair. I was watching this before I headed to the movies. So Risacher, at the end of the shot clock, 5 seconds left. Sometimes with the Hawks, without Trae Young on the floor, they can get into these later clock scenarios, right? For the most part, they try and be as free-flowing and movement-heavy as they can, but sometimes you'll have these scenarios. So here's Zach through the legs. Okay, here comes the ghost screen from Dyson. Watch the pullback, create a bit of contact without pushing off, create separation. Then he resets this. Again, look at how the defender's feet are. He's completely opened up to one side. So Risacher is going to make him turn over his shoulder to create the separation, and then you get a step back, unfortunately, foot on the line. But at 6'10", you're not going to be able to bother that. So yeah, that's a big one for him to hit too. Now this play, again, similar, close out, like be decisive, quick, smart decision, right? So Isaiah Collier doesn't have his hands up. We're just going to rip through, give him a quick jab. So he's going to jab with the right and then push off, go left. That gets Collier moving his weight in one direction. He cannot react quick enough. Left foot dribble, 2 dribbles, gather, and then Risacher, who I think I was looking at Kevin Charnard's tracking. I want to say that he had hand tracked the how Risacher has shot on left-handed shots, and I want to say he's above 50%. I'm pulling up right now, but I really have never really seen this level of Embiid. Oh yeah, so he's 65 of 124 on left-handed shots this season, 52.4%, which is shocking, honestly. Then another possession. This wasn't a good game for the Hawks against the Knicks. One of those games where it's like, you don't make any threes. They're making everything. And then the next game, they had their best offensive performance of the night of the entire season against Utah. And also had a bad defensive performance. But anyways, yeah, so here's Risacher. Contact against OG. Look at how much space he's able to create. OG is not a small man. Okay, let's watch this one more time. Boom, bump, push it back about 2 feet. Now Risacher has him on his back. Okay, so he has him at his mercy. We've seen him get to this spinning sort of spinorama thing, right? Like he'll go like 1, 2, 3, then go back over. Here's just one half spin, get OG moving in one direction, and then hook it over him. Dude, that's just it's so unbelievably polished for his age. Okay, now here he's gonna attack off this handoff from Veet. So first, again, let's pay attention to the footwork here. So he catches with 2. We're gonna go with a jab to the left, get Hardy moving, and as you get him moving, wrap it back around to go back to right, and then at this point you got him on your hip. Risacher leans into him, creates a bit of separation, and it's a decel. Hardy goes flying by. I think he even gets his hand on the ball. Risacher stays poised, confident, knocks it down. I really think there was at some point I felt like I wasn't sure if I really wanted the Hawks to make the playoffs, and some of that is pick related because with the way that the tiebreakers work, the Hawks could potentially, if we end up losing against Orlando, not in the play-in, but like this end of this season, the last game of the season on Sunday, then we could give Sacramento better odds for the lottery, and we need to keep their pick out of the top 12. So like, I'm not saying I would want us to tank the game or want us to tank the season in general, but like I have been very much so. My first thought has been like let's make sure we get that pick because we really do need this pick. Next year it's also it's either top 10 or top 12 protected, but with the way Sacramento is trending, I don't know what they look like next year. So we really need to get this pick. But I think that the more I've seen Risacher from game to game improve, the more I've seen Dyson's confidence improve, the what I've seen from Onyeka offensively, some playoff reps could do them really, really good, especially if Risacher is going to be this under control and be this much of an impact player, because that's honestly what he's been for the Hawks. Like I think like unfortunately like some of the defensive stuff, like our numbers haven't been great with him on the floor. So I think that's part of the reason why like his defensive metrics don't look as good. But I mean, it's night and day when he's on the floor, man. So we're gonna take a look at what he did against Philly, and I think it's pretty simple, and like he's just such a great mover. He's just so good at moving, and he's this one. He's again like you'll see how quickly he gets up the floor, and then Trae's able to find him. Trae's been really good finding guys up the floor quickly this season. I think he's always been willing to do it, but I think it's been a big point of emphasis for him for this particular season. And you see anytime Risacher is on the ball, he takes off so quickly, right? Like there's no hesitation. As soon as he sees anyone on the Hawks, like he's the first one down the floor. So he takes off. Ridiculous pass from Trae, by the way. Like this is ridiculous pass from him. Scoop. He just knows his guys are leaking out.
Facilitating. I mean, look at that pass.
And Dyson's able to go out and run with him. And I think they're just such great compliments in transition. Whether it's Dyson's ability to force turnovers to get the Hawks out into transition, and then Zachary Risacher's intrinsic desire to run, fill lanes, space, be a movement 3-point shooter, and then you throw Jalen Johnson into the mix with Trae Young as the passer. Man, like the Hawks are already one of the best transition offenses in the NBA right now. Off the top of my head, I want to say they're either top 5 or top 10. And again, that's with Jalen Johnson missing more than half of the season. And that's with multiple injuries to guys. That's with not having a playable rotation when Jalen Johnson went out. And that's with waiting until the All-Star break, which most teams do, to actually shore that up. So I expect a lot more of this next season.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding?
It's going to be one of the best transition combinations, I think, in the game, to be honest. I thought that he's been pretty dynamic in general. Here's that step back we were looking at earlier. He's been pretty dynamic in these minutes. I think he's really having some fun, which I think is also important too. So here you see Dyson, dude, this kid, man. Like, so he's intentionally pitching the floor here. This is Lonnie Walker, but he doesn't trust that Jerry Butler can make this pass without him getting in the passing lane. Now the Hawks have 2 on the ball. So as Adem Bona rolls, right, Jared Butler's actually, his first instinct is to throw that pass to the corner. But then you have Vit Krejci cutting that pass off, right? So you want to, the way that most teams play defense is like, okay, you want to limit as many corner 3-point attempts and as many rim attempts as possible. That's what the Hawks are really big on. You're okay with this coming back out to the above the break. It's a lower percentage shot, and it's a longer closeout, right? But this is an easier pass for Jerry Butler to make rather than turn his whole body around and get it back here. He only has 2 options here. You see, he changes his mind midair because he sees Vit Krejci, but Dyson Daniels has already stepped in to take that pass. And look at what Zachary Risacher does. He knows Dyson's going to steal this. Before it's even in his hands, Risacher is taking off. And Ricky Council is not moving as nearly as fast. And then it's just a simple Euro. Ooh, get him out of the way. Reverse dunk. Like, it's just so much synergy with what the Hawks are doing. It's just so much synergy. Now it's about, like, can they finish these shots? Can they leverage opportunities they're creating for one another? But it makes so much sense when you watch them. Again, like, so many fast break points that Zachary Risacher is directly involved in because he has a great passer in Trae Young to set him up, and because the Hawks are committed to getting out the run. Like, they're going to create deflections. Here, Mouhamed Gueye is able to knock the ball away. Dyson Daniels gets off the ball quickly, and then Trae takes off. And it's the trust that he has in Dyson, like, to not have to go back and get this ball and run the fast break, to trust that he can get him out and running, and you just get an easy dunk. They also had an alley-oop at some point. I don't remember what point in the game that was. Yeah, but I want to look at some of the rebounds for Mouhamed Gueye. By the way, if you guys have not seen this site, it's NBAvisuals.com. It is really, really good for these types of things. So we'll look at rebounds for Mo Gueye. Make sure you have that with him on the court. I think the crazy thing about Mo, and I mentioned this and I talked about this pre-draft too with him. He's still so new to basketball, but I think that, and this is another tweet that I'll cite from Kevin, but he said, in the minutes that Mo Gueye is on the floor over the last 10 games, the Hawks are a plus 19.6. With Mo Gueye off the floor, they're a minus 6.7. And as much as this is, March basketball, a lot of matchups against some pretty garbage teams, let's call it what it is. I mean, you get Utah, Philly, Brooklyn, and some games, including some games I should have won. The defense is what's real, and the offensive rebounding, the activity, and the length. The reason why the Hawks are so much better with him on the floor is because right now he's the only other guy on the roster. He's really the only guy on the roster with, like, length and strength, as little strength as he has relative to some other bigs. And you see the difference when it's him at the 5 versus Don Barlow. And you see the difference when it's Onyeka on the floor with Niang next to him or Mo Gueye on the floor. And he's doing this just off God-given traits, right? Like, he's not doing this because he's a super refined basketball player, which I think is what makes, myself and other Hawks fans, like, we're really excited to see what he could be when he gets molded into something more refined, right? And it's like, until that happens, he's still been able to make himself impactful. Like, here, he's the only Hawk in the paint. There are 3 Sixers jerseys in the paint, and he's just able to out jump Adem Bona. Now, he did his work early too here. So, like, you see the first, the Bagley tries to box him out. He's going to get through that, and then he's able to, get through it to Adem Bona. I think he ends up throwing that to the Sixers, but you just love seeing that effort from him. On the defensive glass, Actually, let's look at the particular minutes where he didn't have Onyeka on the floor with him. That'll give us a better idea of what he can do at the 5. And I think this is probably going to be a look that we maybe will see against Orlando. Or we might even see him play with Dom Barlow in these minutes, but I don't think we'll see just Dom at the 5. At least I would hope so. So again, you can see he still needs to, gain some weight. Colin Castleton, who's not a NBA caliber big, like he's bumping him around here, then bumps him around here too, but still able to secure the glass. Then we've got these minutes. I think it was the third quarter. I think this is the possession. He just kept getting offensive rebounds. So the Hawks ended up forcing a turnover
by
here.
Philadelphia and Jared Butler.
Maybe this is the wrong play.
Bagley.
This one right here.
Ball picked up.
Sometimes the NBA site can be funky.
He came by and shot now.
Yes, this ends up being an
Terrence
offensive rebound for Mo. So he gets this one here, and then he also gets this one. So he did kind of stat bad on this particular possession. He gets this one in here. Niang smokes it. Again, nose for the ball. He knows that Adembona is the one who's contesting, and so the glass is pretty much free at this point. Now he ends up smoking it, and I was like, "Oh, don't go out like that." But he ends up getting it again. And then we've got, I'm going to say this.
He'll drive right to the hole.
That was also the offensive rebound. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Something's wrong with the NBA's website because it hasn't been great. We can look at some of the blocks from Mo. Well, I guess not. I don't know. Some is seriously up with the Hawks website because even when I go to the NBA's website, I can't look at them. But yeah, just know that with competition, with the caveat for competition, notwithstanding, Mo Gueye has made himself into an impactful player simply off of just being super lengthy and very active defensively, active on the glass, finishing plays. Caris LeVert as well. He deserves a lot of love for what he was doing offensively, and I think the thing about Caris is like nothing he did last night was like unsustainable. In a lot of ways, I feel like he is, somewhat of a microwave scorer, I guess, but he's also pretty sustainable, more sustainable than guys like that. Like he's not going to be someone who takes a ton of bad shots. Although that was my perception of him at some point. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. Like I was not a big Caris LeVert guy, and there are still moments where I feel like both him and Terrence Mann, not necessarily break the offense, but they're not as, cognizant of certain actions or guys being open. But I think when Caris plays like this offensively, it really gives the Hawks not just a secondary ball handler, but someone who can, in spurts at least, give Trae some reprieve from being the guy who has to create everything. And, it's just smart things like this, right? Like, attack with the advantage because you have Lonnie Walker on your hip. You can get to that user length, get to the basket. He also had, I want to say he got to the free throw line a bunch. Some of the 3-point pull-up stuff was pretty nuts. Now, I also mentioned that Trae has had 12 games where he's had 30-plus points from a teammate. He also scored 30-plus. In this game that Caris had, 5 of his shots were unassisted. Now, I haven't double-checked this stat. I would assume that a decent amount of those 30-plus point games, especially the John Collins games, Trae was still creating for them, right? So I think that's the difference. Maybe DeJounte was definitely able to create his own offense as well, but the fact that you can have Trae get off the ball and be a spacer and have someone else run pick and roll and have someone else be a pull-up 3-point threat and have someone else get to the rim, that's going to be pretty big as they, again, as they try to make their way out of the plane and get these guys some more experience on some more high-stakes basketball. But, Caris will be a big part of that. Ideally, it is still Zach and Mo and Dyson that get the biggest share of the minutes, right, in general. But like here you can see Risacher make a good decision, not challenging Bona, gets it back out to Dyson. Here's the extra pass. Caris gets to attack a rotating defense, pump fake, and it's just, this is actually a great move. He picks it up here, but he's going to take a bigger step. And Jared Butler is just completely thrown off. He has no idea what he's doing. Like he's like, oh, like is he about to shoot it? And it freezes Bona as well. So this is a very good move from Caris. He didn't know what was happening. He just steps away. Some March basketball there as well. Like that was not great defense.
Caris LeVert.
The Hawks are going to generate a lot of offense in second chance and from the fast break, and as much as they can, not play in the half court because again they don't have a ton of high level shot makers, but Caris being that sort of reset option who can get in the paint, make something happen. It's going to be big, man. Like they're going to need him to continue to play like this. He has the most games this season of a bench player with 18 plus points with less than 13 minutes played. Also less than 15 minutes played. I know that's a little ESPN statty, but that just sort of gives you an idea of what he can do quickly off the bench. Give the Hawks a quick scoring punch without being a huge defensive liability. There are times like in my notes, I'll be like, Caris should have stayed more attached, or, Caris was a little bit spaced out there. He wasn't paying as much attention, but this is also a great example of Dyson just covering up gaps defensively, right? So now I mentioned the Hawks' biggest priority is pinching the paint. They don't want easy paint buckets. They want to force passes out. You've got Caris recovering back out to above the break. Dyson's going to peel off here, so he actually was not guarding. That's Marcus Bagley here in the corner. He's going to execute that switch with Niang, and then Niang is going to not chase his man, just pick up Dyson's man as he drives. Dyson intuitively understands, like, let me get back to Dowden. High closeout because this is a decent shooter. Dowden attacks again. He attacks that leading foot, so Dyson has a leading foot somewhat. He has to open up his stance, but he's able to stay attached enough to pin that. And Yika helps too. Then the Hawks get out and run. And here Caris gets to attack a disadvantaged defense by himself. And I don't feel like he hasn't missed any of those opportunities here. Like he's converted on those types of looks. If some of them do look a little bit audacious.
Great energy
sometimes.
and spirit. The Sixers have missed.
That was the same exact clip. I think, yeah. So here's the
push from Daniels.
The three at the end of the half. Just ends up finding Caris, and he's going to shoot it, right? There's Dyson. He ends up missing the putback, but they're able to keep it alive. Onyeka taps it out. Yeah, I think while I was watching the broadcast, I was watching the Philly broadcast, and they were saying, like Quinn Snyder has, so given this team some hope, and it seems like the vibes around us are a little bit better than they have been in the past. And I think that there's a piece in not having expectation, right? In terms of like, I know a lot of Hawks fans may have went into the season thinking, okay, this team's going to do X, Y, Z. This team's going to make a run. And I think with Jalen healthy, this team's pretty comfortably the 6th seed or even the 5th or 6th seed with the way that Milwaukee's season ended up going. And then I think we'd have some serious conversations about what they can do, right? Like I think the Knicks are pretty vulnerable. I think that, if it came down to a matchup against Detroit or Milwaukee, it's a toss-up. Fully healthy, of course. Ideally with Clint Capella not in the rotation. But with what's happened this season, it really does feel like the Hawks are playing with house money, and they have the privilege of looking towards the future more than having to stake everything on this particular playing appearance, particular playoff appearance. I still think the goal should be to make the playoffs. It's not awesome that they have to play Boston again. Boston, I have seen Jalen Brown has had some injury stuff, but that team is still, of course, championship caliber. My current pick to be a champion. So it does kind of suck that that's the reward. If you get out this grueling matchup with Orlando, who has given us some problems again with size and physicality, and I've also injured some guys inadvertently, but they do play a little bit reckless, a little bit with a lot of force, right? So it's a high stakes game, right? So I can expect a lot more of that type of basketball. But yeah, at the end of the day, man, like I'm not saying like, like that Russ Westbrook video, he's like, like then they just go out and have fun. I'm not saying that by any means, but I'm just saying I would not be particularly disappointed if the Hawks don't end up making a playoff run. I think they can give Boston a run for their money. As injured as they are, as shot-making deficient as they are, because we've seen what Trae can do in these playoff moments. We saw what he did against them in 2023 when he hit that buzzer beater when DeJounte Murray got himself suspended and bought the Hawks another game. So I would love to see. I love playoff basketball. I love seeing the Hawks in the playoffs. I love seeing Trae Young. I think it'd be so important for Zach Risacher, Dyson, and Onyeka. So the goal should be to make the playoffs. Whether that impacts the way we get the pick or not. But ideally, they still get that pick. So yeah, those are my thoughts from the last couple of games. I hope you all like the new overlay, right? And I got some new equipment too. I see the headphones, the mic. coming up, we'll do the Magic breakdown. We'll do the Magic playing game preview. We'll do some award shows like courtroom style. So I'm going to bring on like some previous guests that we differ on awards, and we'll prevent our opening statements. We'll discuss, and then we'll give some closing statements about like, whether we ready to change each other's minds or not. And we'll do that for pretty much every award. I also want to do playoff previews for every matchup in the first round. So we'll try and reach out to fans from each team and bring them on so we can give you all like a good understanding of where each team stands between their particular matchups, because I think the West in particular is super matchup dependent. And if OKC gets a bad draw, or if the Rockets get Golden State, then because it could be some madness over there. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed. The new look. Also working on an intro video for the pod. It's going to be dope. And I've got a Dyson Daniels video cooking up, so I definitely would love y'all support. I'm going to try and get that out Monday, Tuesday-ish. We'll see. But again, y'all be safe. Appreciate y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.